is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
There we are. Ready to rock and roll, and there he is, Daniel Oyefusi, right? Is that how it's pronounced?
Yes, sir, you got it.
All right, I love it. How you doing, Daniel? How Florida? What's it now? 4 or 5 months for you? How long you been here already?
Not just on the verge of 3 months, but I'm enjoying it. I mean, you see the light behind me. It's 75 degrees in the middle of November. I mean, life is good.
Yes, it is. There's no doubt about it. Where were you before? Tell the folks.
Yeah, I was covering the Ravens for the Baltimore Sun for the last 2 seasons, and I'm born and raised in Baltimore, so it's definitely different for me coming down to South Florida.
So was it tough for you to leave your hometown and the crab cakes to come to South Florida? Talk to me a little bit, because like, I'm a hometown guy. I was born in Belgrade, Florida, which, by the way, I'm a weirdo, as you know, Daniel, because most people are from somewhere else here. You know what I mean? Us real Floridians, like, we're a rare breed. But I did leave to work in San Francisco in radio for a short time.
Okay.
And San Francisco is beautiful, man. It's just a great place to live. It really is. Great people and everything. I had a great experience while I was there for a short time, but I hated still leaving South Florida because it's my hometown. So how did you handle that?
Yeah, like I said, that Maryland's home for me. Baltimore's home for me. I don't really have any family down here, so it's definitely a leap of faith. But with the Miami Herald, that opportunity that came up, I mean, to cover the Dolphins is, as much as the team has struggled over the past couple of years. I mean, it's a storied franchise, so it's an opportunity that I couldn't really pass up, and I'm glad that I'm down here for sure.
All right, so were you the reason why the Ravens were constantly kicking the Dolphins' ass? So maybe now that you're here, the Dolphins can win tonight? What do you think? Is there any shot here?
Man, it's a slim shot, man. It's a slim shot. I do think it's going to be a little closer than most people think. I mean, I think a lot of people are thinking it's going to be closer to like that 59-10 game in 2019. I don't think it's going to get that bad, but I think that it's Thursday night. It's a home game. Ravens have to travel down here. I mean, weird things happen on Thursday nights, but I do think the Ravens are going to win. But I think it'll be a little bit closer than most people expect.
I hope so. I'm not believing the BS with Tua and all that stuff. He's not playing, right? It just I kind of get the feeling that he can't make all the throws that they really need. He throws the ball, and people think, well, he's throwing the ball, but throwing the ball doesn't mean you can actually throw it in a game with the kind of velocity and everything that you need and all of that. And I'm just, to me, I'm not buying it. If I'm John Harbaugh, I'm preparing for Brissett.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Flores straight up said on Tuesday, and I was kind of surprised that he said this, because nobody really asked him specifically, but he just said, "Oh, if the game was Tuesday night, yeah, Jacoby would play. But we're holding out hope for the next 48 hours. I mean, if you couldn't play, if you weren't able to start with a fractured middle finger on your throwing hand on Sunday, I mean, and you weren't going to start on Tuesday night, I mean, what's the 48 hours going to do? I mean, they're holding down hope that maybe the swelling comes down, there's less discomfort, but it's 48 hours, and even so, if he's able to make the throw, is it even worth it? Throwing him back out there and maybe risking re-aggravating that. I mean, you're about to get 10 days off before your next game. I mean, I think that they might be best. A lot of people don't like to hear this, but I mean, just sit the kid and let him get fully healthy. The ribs he's still playing through that. Sit him for an extra 10 days and come back, next week Sunday to a healthier player.
I'm 1,000% with you. I think it makes a lot of sense. And behind that line right now, it's just a mess. So you're better off probably resting the kid and giving him another 10 days. I think that's a great call on your part. Speaking of that disaster known as the offensive line, Daniel, what are you expecting today? What kind of changes? Because we were kind of talking, and I was thinking maybe you put Greg Little at guard and put Hunt at right tackle, and Jesse Davis goes to where I think he belongs, is the sixth man. That's where I think Jesse would excel, is the guy that waits in the wings just in case a tackle or guard gets hurt. He goes in to fill in and keeps the ship afloat for half a game or a game and a half or something until you can get somebody back. I don't look at Jesse Davis as a starter. I don't think he's athletic enough. So do you see any changes along the O-line?
I mean, it's possible. Brian Flores said that he was asked specifically about Greg Little, who they acquired him in a trade. He's a young guy just in his third year from Carolina, and he hasn't even been active for most of the game. So he was asked what about him, and he said, "Hey, there's been a lot of conversations about getting him some playing time and maybe giving him some run, but it's like it's a short week. That's tough to." Short week of preparation. That's tough to throw a young guy in there who hasn't played all season. If he does enter the starting lineup, I would think that it would be at tackle, which means that you're either, I guess, sitting Liam Eichenberg at left tackle or Jesse Davis at right tackle. I don't think that they want to like completely like blow the offensive lineup and then just like play musical chairs, especially on a short week. I mean, they went the first like 5 or 6 weeks with a completely new offensive line every single game. And I think that they kind of like that continuity. Does Greg Little play? I mean, there's a chance, but on a short week again, I mean, is that really what you want to do? You think that's the best thing to do against the Ravens? I mean, this offensive line is in disarray as it is. Why potentially blow it up on a short week and kind of risk an even worse disaster?
Would you make any changes? All right, I'm going to put you as the coach. You've been around the team now.
Yeah.
What changes would you make?
So I'll preface my statement by saying over the past couple of years, we all know that the Dolphins have invested a lot of resources, a lot of draft capital into this offensive line. So there's a lot of incentive to make it work with the guys that are currently in place. There's a lot of incentive to make it work with Austin Jackson. That's why they moved him from left tackle to left guard instead of benching him. That's why they kept on moving Liam Eichenberg around. That's why they have Rob Hunt at right guard. And as much as people want to say move him to right tackle, I mean, I think he's been solid at right guard. It's like, if you got one position locked up, why don't you just keep that locked up and then worry about the rest? With that being said, I mean, we can't keep on doing the same thing over and expecting different results. I mean, that's insane. That's the definition of insanity. At some point, if these young guys aren't playing up to the standard, and the offensive line coach John Pierre, he said this like in the third week of the season when we were questioning the offensive line back then. He said if guys aren't getting better, they shouldn't be on the field. And I know that Liam Eichenberg is a young guy; he's had his struggles, but at some point, it's like it's not getting the job done. Like, there has to be a standard set, and if it's not working there, maybe you got to put Greg Little in for a game. Maybe you got to put Robert Jones in for a game and see what's happening, because they're doing the same thing over and over again. And it's not even that it's not getting better, it's getting worse. So they got to switch something up eventually.
Now, here's where the rubber meets the road for me. I think it's effing impossible that all these players suck. I'm serious.
I agree with you.
I also think it's effing impossible that you're going to hit on all of them and they're all going to be great. But I know there's something in between. And for me, Daniel, here's where I'm convinced. I'm convinced the coaching staff is nowhere near getting it done. And that's where I think these players are being failed. They're failed on offense. They're failed on the offensive line, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. Overall, it's a decline in the coaching staff as it is. Even on defense and special teams has gone awry a little bit, but specifically to the offense. I think because you have basically a rookie line coach, rookie offensive coordinators, you put rookie linemen to put him in front of a inexperienced quarterback. I mean, if you think that was going to work, you're out of your mind. And that's where Flores screwed up. There isn't enough experience anywhere, not at quarterback, not in the O-line, not at the O-line coach, not at the offensive coordinators, nothing. And that's the problem. Because there's no foundation, nobody can look around and ask anybody for any advice, because nobody's been through hell and back and say, I've been there, done it. I've got Pro Bowls. I've got a Super Bowl. I've got a whole bunch of playoff appearances. I'm a decorated coach. I've designed all these lines. I've designed these offenses. To me, that's the real problem right now. I think your coaches aren't good enough, and that's failed a whole ton of young players that really needed their guidance. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, really, during the early stretch of that 7-game losing streak, I was just left kind of like scratching my head. I mean, the talent. I think we may have all maybe overestimated the talent on this roster, but on paper, this isn't a 2-7 team. This should not be a 2-7 team. They're not the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in terms of the talent.
Of course
But
not.
this is not talent from top to bottom. This is not a 2-7 team. And we know that there's been injuries to the wide receiver room. The offensive line hasn't progressed, and like you said, I think those are all very fair questions to ask. Is the coaching staff that's being put around the proper coaching staff to develop these players? Because it's like I said, it's one thing to not get better, but it's another thing to get worse. I mean, this offensive line has legitimately gotten worse. Austin Jackson has regressed up until them moving him to left guard, where he's been, he's been a little bit better than he was at left tackle. And it's a fair question when Chan Gailey was the offensive coordinator last year, and they were scoring 25 points a game, which I think was the best Miami Dolphins offense.
It's Marino.
Exactly. And they understandably part ways because they want to kind of cater to Tua. But I mean, you have this whole co-offensive coordinator deal with Charlie Fry as the quarterback's coach, and we're doing a whole dance for the first half of the season, just trying to see who's calling the plays, really just for some accountability to ask the questions and say how the sausage is being made. So to this date, 3 years into his tenure, Flores hasn't really been able to put together a cohesive offensive coaching staff. Those are all really fair questions, and again, I say, I'm left wondering how can a team which, I mean, in terms of talent, I mean, if you compare them to the Texans, they have way more talent than the Texans. They have way more talent than the Lions. I mean, they shouldn't, I was almost kind of confused. How can you beat the Texans by 8 points? I mean, that game should not have been close.
Hell, how could you be scoreless against the Texans in the second
half? And that's where I say the coaching, it's not all coming together from top to bottom, from the front office, the coaching to the players. There's just some kind of disconnect. And somehow, depending on how the end of the season ends, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to get that cohesiveness back.
So, Daniel, having said all that, I've seen this movie before with other coaches, okay? Because we've been in this vicious cycle for 25 years now.
Yeah.
So he has failed to build a coaching staff for 3 years now. For 3 years, he's constantly fired and changed coaches. He cannot figure the offense out. He actually had a good offensive coordinator last year, and he scared the dude off already, and he's gone. So why would you bring Flores back next year if you know he cannot build a coaching staff? And that is it's not just developing players. It's not just drafting players. It's just not out scheming your opponent. If you can't build and replace a staff, because as you know, you cover the Ravens, John Harbaugh doesn't keep the same staff every year.
He lost a whole bunch of guys this past season. Yeah.
Guys leave and get elevated and get other jobs like any business. In the Herald, somebody leaves, Daniel comes in, replaces him. Eventually, Daniel will get a Washington Post correspondent piece, and he'll end up in the NFL Network. He'll be, he'll be replacing Jay Glazer, and he'll forget about us. And then the Herald has to replace you somehow or another. You know what I'm saying? So that's part of this business. In any world, and any CEO, any manager, anybody, you're going to have to replace good employees. He hasn't found them. So he can't even replace them. So why would you bring back a coach that can't build a coaching staff?
I'll say this, and I've kind of, as some of the pitchforks have started to be lit, fired up and whatnot in the first half of the season. I would say I think that given his 2020 season where they doubled the win total, they were able to win 10 wins, I think that he deserves. And I know you're not going to he deserves the benefit of the doubt to see this season through and see how this season ends. Now, if he completely loses the team, if they just kind of give up on him and they're mailing it in, which I don't think that they have. I don't think that they will, because there's a lot of prideful guys on that team. I still think
although you got to admit, X is making some business decisions at times.
He has not had a season,
especially in the Tampa game when Leonard Fournette was right at the line of scrimmage, and he said, I'm not gonna make that tackle. You know what I'm saying?
I think there's a lot of guys that don't make that tackle, but I will agree with you. He has not played to the standard that he expects and that anyone that's watching him expects. But again, I say that unless
most
the wheel,
you're right. You're right.
yeah.
Most overall, they're still playing hard. You're correct.
And unless the wheels really fall off the wagon where you see he really loses his team, which I don't think he has, and I don't think he will, I think that he deserves the benefit of the doubt to see if he can get it right. And regardless, because they're not making the playoffs. So if he comes back for the 4th year, that's a legitimate hot seat. I don't think he should be on the hot seat right now. But if you elect to bring him back, the results got to be fast. You can't have a 1-5 start, a 2-7 start. You can't be slow out the gate like you have your first 3 years as a head coach. You gotta figure out how to assemble a quality offensive coaching staff, fix the offensive line, get healthy and reliable receivers, and then it's go time from the start of the 22 season. It's not if it's 2-5 out the gate, if it's 1-4, I mean you're looking at a potential coaching change. But again, I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt.
All right, Daniel, before I let you go, remember, follow him on Twitter at Daniel Oyefusi and catch his work at the Miami Herald. Subscribe so you can catch his work there. One more thing before I let you go. Tell me how much it sucks for you, me, and the rest of us in the media that Barry Jackson makes all of us look stinking lazy. Because he writes like 87 articles a day. Admit it. Come on, admit it. You walk around, you're going, what are you, dude? A machine? What's wrong?
He's the hardest
beats.
He's the hardest working man in South Florida, man. I know some days I'll wake up and I'll see 3 stories by Barry, and I'm like, man, I gotta catch up. But he's a great colleague. I won't, and I've accepted it. It. He's the hardest working man in South Florida for sure.
Don't bother. Barry does a great job of making the rest of us look lazy.
Definitely.
Daniel, thank you for taking some time, my man. I really appreciate it. Enjoying your work there with the Miami Herald, and it looks like the viewers are enjoying your spot here with us on the show. Look forward to doing it again. Enjoy the game tonight, my friend.
Likewise, you too. Anytime.
You got it. There you go. Daniel Oyefusi from the Miami Herald, Dolphins beat writer. There you go.